Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Sorry, Jamie. It all goes downhill for you from here as we now get to your least favorite part of the show. That's where I talk to everybody for the TDN Daily podcast. A pleasant Tuesday morning to everybody. Hope everybody's having a great start to their day. Super excited for this show topic. I will explain this again when we record for the actual show. But Jamie yesterday sent me an article. We were going back and forth about some stuff for prospects and props, and he sent me an article, and he said this is a potential TDN Daily idea, and it was a story from NFL.com where franchises were ranked most likely to win their first Super Bowl championship, and the article was written before the Nuggets won the title last night, and then it was either late last night or this morning that Taylor B threw into the Discord a Friday free-for-all topic. It was late last night. I'm now looking at the timestamp. That said, in honor of the Nuggets getting their first championship, rank the NFL teams currently without a Super Bowl title by how likely they are to win their next one. So I figured, okay, I've got two people independently at different times suggesting this as a topic. We needed a Tuesday show topic before we get into our next positional rankings list. So why not do another list? Everybody loves the lists. Everybody loves to be offended. Everybody loves to get upset with where I rank teams. So that's what we're going to do here on the show today. We are going to do this. I'll say I thought this was a pretty easy list to put together. I think it's pretty straightforward how these teams ultimately rank, but we can have a debate, and I think there are some tiers to be had about them. So just give me 2 seconds. I need to turn on the ring light, and then we can get started. All right, we are back. Every list is easy after the D line list. That's a great point, Jamie. That is a fantastic point. We'll go to the full screen here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the show. The D line list, I think, so far has been the list that was the most troubling for us to put together. I mean, the linebacker list I haven't started yet. I will do it today, and we'll see the way it all pans out. But I think the linebacker list will be easier than some of the other lists we put together. I still think the D line list, the offensive line list was somewhat difficult. I think those would be the two lists that I think at this point would be the ones that I would describe as the most difficult. So, all right, folks, we got a big list to get into here. We will get into this, and we will start the show, and we will have a debate. So let's get it started. And welcome into the Tuesday edition of the TDN Daily podcast. Chris Schubert back with you here once again on the show. Hope everybody is having a fantastic start to their Tuesday. We've got another list, another rankings episode here for you. Not our positional ranking series. We're taking a time out from that. We're back with that again tomorrow. But in honor of the Denver Nuggets winning their first NBA championship last night, and in honor of Jamie sending me a story yesterday in which somebody ranked teams by likelihood of winning their first Super Bowl championship, their first NFL title, their first Lombardi trophy, and Taylor B of the Discord mentioning it late last night after the Nuggets won their championship that it would be a good Friday free-for-all topic to rank the teams in the NFL based on likelihood of winning their first title. I said, okay, we've got two people that have suggested it. The Denver Nuggets just did it last night. Let's do it here for the Tuesday show, and that is what we are going to do. I have already done the list. I've already done the work. There are 12 teams on this list for today's show, not our normal 32, so a little bit of an easier list to put together. And I think overall an easy list to put together when you look at it from the context of teams that are likeliest to win a Super Bowl trophy next among the group of teams that have never won one. I think there are some clear tier breaks when doing this list. There are teams down at the bottom that are probably multiple years away from being in contention. There's a middle tier of teams that I can see going in either direction, either making a run or needing some time to get back to a path. And then I think there are the top teams. Right now, I think it's probably 3, maybe 4 teams that I would put in the top tier of they are in a window right now where they can win a Super Bowl championship and cross their names off of this list. So that is what we are going to do here on the show today, and I will leave it up to the live YouTube audience here to decide where do we want to start with this. Do we want to start with the back part of the list, or do we want to start with the top of the list among the 12 teams that we have to go through here today? I think I know where everyone's going to want to go, but I'll leave it up to you guys. If you want to start with the back of the list in terms of the teams that are the furthest away from winning a Super Bowl, their first Super Bowl, or the teams that are the closest. Okay, we've got a lot of suggestions to go from the back of this list. So I'll start here. I think there are 3 teams that are at the bottom tier here, as I would describe it. 3 teams that I would put in the tier of they are probably very far away, or they are, I can kind of get there, but it's going to take some time. And so for me, the bottom three teams, so 10, 11, and 12, would be the way that I would describe this. 10, 11, and 12 is this tier that I would mention or describe as I just mentioned, as teams that are probably a couple of years away. Number 12 for me, the Houston Texans. I like a lot of the things they're doing, but we've got a rookie quarterback. We've got a first-time head coach. We still need a lot of overhaul to some of this roster. We need help with the wide receiver department. Our offensive line on the right side is a little bit of a question mark. Our defense still needs some help. We like a lot of the pieces there, but we're still a ways away. And again, we've still got a rookie quarterback we don't know a whole lot about. So because of that, and we've got a first-year head coach, it's going to take them some time. They are in a division that could allow them to compete relatively quickly. But for me, when I look at this, they are a team that we have too many question marks about right now. And so if I have too many question marks about you as a team, you go here towards the bottom of the list. So they are number 12. Number 11, I have the Tennessee Titans, a team that is in that division as well. Again, we've got long-term questions about the quarterback. We have long-term questions about if Derrick Henry's going to be there long-term. An offensive line that is ranked toward the bottom of the league. I think they were the worst. A wide receiver core that was the worst in all of football. We haven't even started to discuss their defensive side of things. And so maybe you can make a case to flip Houston and Tennessee here. I think the coaching is where I would kind of give the advantage right now, but very quickly I think that could flip, and you could say Houston has a better long-term answer at coach with DeMeco Ryans over Mike Vrabel. But I think Vrabel's got the coaching advantage, and that's probably the thing that would be the differentiator at this point here. And I think right now they've just got a little bit more talent, but they're at the bottom of the barrel, and a lot of these, both of these teams are. The list that we've been doing so far, positional rankings, these two teams have been towards the bottom the entire time. The third team on this list, the team at number 10, and I think the difference here is they've got the answer at quarterback, and we've got a big enough sample size, I think, to determine that we've got the answer at quarterback. I've got the Arizona Cardinals here at number 10, and they are a team that's got a lot of holes. They are a team that needs a lot of help. They need help on the offensive line. They're going to need long-term answers at wide receiver with DeAndre Hopkins now gone. Their running back room is bottom of the league. Their defense, they're moving pieces around to try to figure out where guys can go. Budda Baker might not be there long-term. When I look at this, the thing you need to have when putting yourself on this list is you got to have a quarterback. And Arizona does have a quarterback. They do have Kyler Murray. And I'm not going to rehash here in June the will they, won't they with Kyler Murray long term. But as of this moment, as we sit here and do this list, Kyler Murray is the answer for them at quarterback. And so for me, that's what allows them to be in front of Tennessee and Houston. But we don't know when Kyler's going to be coming back. We don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back. And this team's got holes all over the place. And even when they were kind of okay with Kyler and they had some of these holes plugged, they still struggled at times. So they still got a lot of work to do. They still have a lot of holes that they need to fill to be able for me to feel comfortable with them long term. They're in a division that could potentially become open here pretty soon. The Rams are trending downwards. Seattle, who knows? Who knows where we feel about Geno Smith and them long term? San Francisco, they're going to be the standard bearer, but the division could potentially open itself up in a couple of years, and so that could be where they could strike. Taylor B asks, are you going to make a list after all the positional rankings using each team's average rankings? I hadn't considered it, Taylor, but let's see. That'll be a fun little thought exercise to see that after doing all of the lists, we'll take the average ranking and we'll make that our power rankings, and we'll see how we feel about the way it all kind of works out. So we'll kind of file that one away for a post-positional rankings list show that we can do and dissect all of that. Jamie says the Cardinals are going to end up with like the second and fifth pick and still miss out on Caleb. I hope they miss out on Caleb because I'm not here for the discourse. I'm already sick and tired of people trying to tell me that they're just going to cut or trade Kyler Murray this upcoming offseason and get Caleb Williams. I'm already sick and tired of it. So that is the bottom tier, the 10, 11, and 12. I think teams that are really, really far away and have a lot of holes that they need to fill. I think this next tier, I got 3, maybe 4 teams in this next tier of teams that are, I think, better than the 3 teams that we just mentioned, obviously. I think for the next 2, the division certainly helps these 2 teams. They still have major question marks, but I can see a path to where they get into the dance, and getting into the dance, that's really all you need. Then you can get hot. So for me at number 9, the Atlanta Falcons. At number 9. We don't know a lot about Desmond Ridder. I love a lot of the other stuff that they're doing, right? I think their offensive line is very good. I think they have a really good running game. Hopefully my guy Eugene is in here so he can hear me say that. I think they have a pretty good running game. Defensively, I think they've got a really good D-line. They were ranked very high for me. They've made a lot of nice inroads with some of the pieces defensively. They got they got Jeff Okudah in the offseason to help them in that corner room. So they are a team that are I think trending upwards. The division is very very favorable to them. I think they can win the division. They finished one game out of it last year, right? So they can win the division, but I still got a lot of question marks. I got a lot of question marks about what their offensive philosophy is going to be because they don't have a great wide receiver room. And so they're going to rely a lot on the running game. They're going to rely a lot on Kyle Pitts and Drake London to kind of get things done offensively. And we'll see what Desmond Ridder can look like in year two. So that would be the reason why, if we were ranking this in terms of likelihood, I still have questions about this team. Team number 8, team that I'm super high on, a team that I think people are going to be sleeping on, a team that I think can win this division. That's the Carolina Panthers. And I grouped these teams closer together because I view them pretty similarly. I love this coaching staff. I will continue to rave about this Carolina Panthers coaching staff until the season begins, and I'll probably even do it during the season. The coaching staff that the Carolina Panthers have put together to expedite this rebuild is, I think, one of the better coaching staffs in all of football. They've got great minds at all of the coordinator spots. They have great minds across their positional coaches, and I think they have a great offensive mind as their head coach, who I think is going to be a great leader and really help this team at a really important time. They've got Bryce Young at the quarterback position. He's a rookie, so he's a relative unknown. We've got some questions about certain groups here. I think they're a team that's on the rise defensively. You have some question marks about what their offense is going to look like. They don't have Christian McCaffrey, although they ran pretty well even when Christian McCaffrey got traded last year. No DJ Moore. That's a question mark. They do have Adam Thielen. Terrence Marshall could step up. There are question marks, but I think there's enough talent, there's enough things for me to believe in to think that I like their path better than the teams behind them. And I think that's the argument that we have to have here is, would you take them over the teams that you have behind them? And would you take all the teams in front of them over them? And I think so far, we feel pretty comfortable with where we've got this list so far. So that's 9 and 8. Team number 7, I think the two things that stop this team from being higher up on the list for me is the division they play in and what version of their quarterback we are going to get here in 2023. And so for me at number 7 are the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson was objectively bad last year. The worst year of his career, did not play well. I know it was only the 6 games, came back from the 700-plus day layoff, but he was not good. And it wasn't like he was just mediocre. It wasn't like he was just average. No, he was statistically awful. And he needs to get to just a competent level of quarterback play for me to feel good about the Cleveland Browns. And if he is able to do that, they're going to be able to be competitive. But then the second part of this argument kicks in where they're in a division with the Baltimore Ravens, who are, I think, going to be pretty good this year. They've got Lamar back, new offense. I like some of the things that they've done with their wide receiver room. I think they're going to be much better and much more efficient on offense. I think you're going to see a better version of Lamar this year as long as he can stay healthy. And you've got the Cincinnati Bengals, who we're going to get to a little bit later on when doing this list. So they're a team, I think, for me, that the competition in the division hurts quite a bit. But at the same time, they've got talent where you feel like they could break through. But I got too many questions about Deshaun Watson until he shows me he can be the player that he was in 2020. Because I'd like to remind everybody. Everybody says, oh, they traded for the 2020 version of Deshaun Watson. When the season kicks off, we will be 3 full calendar years removed from that player. 3 calendar years from that player. That's a question mark for me. There's a big gap in time between the player that everyone thinks Deshaun Watson can be and the player that he actually has been in recent memory. And so for me, that's the big thing that we need to keep an eye on is as he goes, that team is going to go. But for me, they clock in at number 7. All right, so we get into the top 6, and I think this next chunk of teams are really interesting. I think that when we get to number 6, I think this is a team that is very, very trendy. This is a team that is very, very popular to pick here in 2023. I think they're very trendy to pick because they broke through last year. They made the playoffs. They won the division. They won a playoff game. They were a team that kind of checked all the boxes. They've got a first pick overall quarterback. They've got a really good offensive-minded head coach that we really saw kind of expand this offense. And so they're trendy. They're popular. They're in a division that they're the favorites in. But I think in the landscape of the AFC, when handicapping this, and this is kind of where this part of the list, you have to look at the path that they're able to be on. This is where I have the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 6. I'm not saying I don't like the team. I love Trevor Lawrence. I thought he certainly improved last year. Did show some bad signs at times as well, but was able to make some improvements and was a better version of himself in 2023. Doug Peterson made an impact as the head coach. They were so vastly improved offensively from where they were under Urban Meyer. The division is very much theirs for the taking. But in the power structure of the AFC, I still think they're behind some teams on offense. I still think they're behind some teams on defense. I've got questions about this offensive line. There are some questions about the defense. We still got a bunch of positional rankings still to go. We'll see where they'll ultimately clock in when we do some of these lists. But for me, again, if you're going to buy in, you're buying in on Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson in year 2, taking another massive leap. And because they're in the division, they're going to get to host a home playoff game, and you factor in with that as well. But again, the power structure of the AFC concerns me, and I still think they're behind a bunch of those teams in that power structure, in that pecking order. So for me, they're number 6. But when we finish the list, we can, you guys know the drill. We can have these debates. Number 5 and 4, I have a pair of teams from the same division, and I have them in a very, very specific order because I think one team is better than the other. Number 5, I have the Minnesota Vikings, and I still think they have enough of their structure intact offensively for them to be competitive. I think the division is wide open. They are the defending champs. Green Bay on the decline. We don't know what Jordan Love is going to be here in year 1. The Bears, I still think, are far away, despite what some other people maybe want to project. Saw a projection the other day that said the Bears were going to win 12 games. I will sell on the 12 wins for the Bears. But Minnesota, they've still got enough of their infrastructure, I think, in place for them to be competitive. And competitive could allow them to win the division. Then winning the division could allow them to obviously host a playoff game. And I don't think the NFC is strong as the NFC. I don't think that is a hot take, right? I think we all view the AFC as the bloodbath. I think we all view the AFC as a gauntlet to be able to make it to the Super Bowl. And this list is about teams that have never won a championship, likelihood of winning another one or winning their first. And so for me, the pathway is very, very important. And when comparing Minnesota to Jacksonville, I think you can make the argument Jacksonville is a more talented team than Minnesota, but the path for Minnesota feels a lot easier to be able to get to an HA conference championship game and then to ultimately get to a Super Bowl and to be able to play in one. So for me, Minnesota at number 5, and I've got Detroit at number 4 because I think Detroit's better. I think Detroit's window is opening while Minnesota is trying to kind of rebuild on the fly to keep their window open or kind of transition into a new window. I think Detroit's a better team. I think they're more talented. I think they're going to win the division. Again, all of the priors that I just mentioned about Minnesota, about what winning your division does for you, applies for Detroit. I think they're younger. I think they've got more of their pieces long-term in place. And so for me, I'm going to take Detroit over Minnesota. Now we get to the top 3. And I think these 3 teams, if anybody did this list, these would be the teams that you would immediately write down for the top of this list. And they're all teams from the same conference. And this is where you need to determine pathways. You need to determine where these teams are in their life cycles, in the pecking order. There's a lot of questions that go into this. But the 3 teams, in no particular order, I'm not going to reveal the order, but the 3 teams that we're debating now are the Bills, the Chargers, and the Bengals. Those are the 3 teams that sit here to be for these final 3 spots. And so we've done all of the list so far, and it gets down to these last 3 teams. And I think there is a tier break amongst these 3 teams. And I think there are 2 teams that you can view towards the top of this pecking order that have a history, that have a roadmap, that have had playoff success in the past. And I think those teams you put towards the top and you have them by themselves. And I think the team you put at number 3 is the team whose potential you believe in, whose quarterback you believe in, but they play in a tough division. They're more than likely going to finish second in their division for the foreseeable future unless they can find some magic here in 2023 or in 2024 or just in the near future. But so for me at number 3 is the Los Angeles Chargers. I love this team. I love a lot of this team. I love their receiving core. I love their quarterback. I love their offensive line. I love their a lot of the pieces they have on defense. I love this team. But until they break through, until they go into the playoffs and win a playoff game and go on a run, they are going to be a step behind for me. And again, they're in the AFC pecking order where they're more than likely going to always be second in their division, which means they're going to be a wild card team, which means they're going to have to go on the road, which means that a team from LA is going to have to go on the road to Cincinnati, to Buffalo, to Kansas City, to the Dolphins, to the Jets, whoever the case, to the Ravens, whoever wins those divisions, they're going to have to go on the road for those games. And so for me, that is the difference maker. So for them at number 3, and then and Taylor B says the top 3 was the easiest part of the list. I agree. I think this is relatively simple. I have the Bills at number 2 and I have the Bengals at number 1. And here's why. I think the Bills' trajectory is trending downward. I think their window is slowly closing. And as long as they have Josh Allen, they're going to have a window. But I think the window with this current roster that everyone feels really, really good about, I think is trending downward. And so for me, I have them at number 2. And the reason why I have Cincinnati at number 1 is because listen, let's call a spade a spade. They've made it to a Super Bowl in this window with Joe Burrow. The Bills haven't. The Bills have not had the level of playoff success that the Bengals have had, where they've won an AFC title, where they've gone to a Super Bowl. I think the Bengals window is on the ascension, not the descension, with Joe Burrow and company there in Cincinnati. And so for me, the pathway, I think they're the favorite. They're going to be the favorites in their division this upcoming season. And so for me, it goes Cincinnati 1, Buffalo 2, and the Chargers 3. And so I look at this, and here's the way that this list breaks down for me. Bengals 1, Bills 2, Chargers 3, Lions 4, Vikings 5, Jags 6, Browns 7, Panthers 8, Falcons 9, Cardinals 10, Titans 11, and the Texans 12. That is how it shakes out 1 through 12. Now that we've done the list, I will open it up for debate. I will open it up for any questions, for anything that we want to maybe hash out. If there are teams that we want to move, if there are any gross oversights. I mean, the chat's been very, very active in having this conversation. I haven't felt as if there's been a massive oversight from me here. I think people have felt pretty good about what we've done so far. But if we want to have those debates, this is the time for us to do so. This is the time for us to have these conversations. But I just read to you the list 1 through 12 of teams who have never won a Super Bowl championship and how I view them in terms of likelihood of winning their first one next. Taylor B says, move the Jags to 4 and I'm good. If you don't have the QB, then you aren't in the conversation. Move the Jags to 4 and I'm good. If you don't have the QB, then you aren't in the conversation. Bailey says, I think there's a realistic shot that Trevor Lawrence is an elite QB by the end of the year. You can't have him behind teams who don't even have that answer, even given the conference. I think I can. I think the conference can be a difference maker. I do, because this is not how good a team is. This is their likelihood of winning a Super Bowl. And teams have elite QBs. The Los Angeles Chargers have an elite QB. They're not making a Super Bowl. Right? They're low on the pecking order. The Ravens have an elite QB in Lamar Jackson. In the AFC pecking order, they'd be pretty low. So I think the conference does matter. The pathway that can get you there absolutely matters. And I don't think overall as a team, there is a vast discrepancy between the Jags and the Lions to where Trevor Lawrence can override the conference that they play in. I'm not there yet. Could we be there by the end of the season? Sure. But I'm not there yet. And so for me, the fact that in all three of the teams that are ranked in that order, Lions, Vikings, Jags, are all teams that are very likely to win their division. And so when I look at this, you got to tell me that the pathway, once they get to the dance as a division winner, would I rather take the Lions path or the Jags path? Give me the Lions path. 100% of the time, I would take the Lions path in 2023. Bailey says it can be if it's close. Chris, we know that in January, elite QBs are what matters. We saw that Vikings team fold to the Giants. They couldn't run the table and aren't close. The Jags almost beat the Chiefs. Coaching can, though, too. You take Peterson over Campbell all day. I would, but I think the talents of the teams are close. I don't know if you did a blind resume how different the Lions and the Jags truly are. The Lions haven't made the playoffs yet, Chris. The Jags beat the Chargers and ran the Chiefs very close. But that's not. I mean, the past history does matter, and I appreciate the conversation. And I understand the Lions haven't made the playoff yet. And there's nobody that is warning against that more than me. Because, I mean, they are hashtag our Lions, right? And they're hashtag our Lions because we believe in the coaching. We believe in the team. We believe in the vision. We believe in the talent. We just love what they're doing, right? And so we've been riding this wave for, 2+ years now in various different formats, both on TDN Daily and on Draft Dudes. The path, maybe I'm putting too much weight on it, and that's fine, and I'll admit that. The path to the Super Bowl matters to me when you start talking this top 6. I think once you start getting into these, I think the pathway matters. And the Jags, even if they win the division, are going to have to host the Ravens, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Chargers maybe. And then if they win that, then they're going to have to go through the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals. Like, that's just a tough path. And the pathway matters for this. What ranking did you have Goff, Chris? That's a great question. Let me pull up the list here in real time. Positional rankings. We had the Lions 14. We had the Lions QB room 14. We had the Jags QB room 10. So we had a 4-spot difference between the Lions QB room and the Jags QB room. Tuttle says, I had the same order as you, Chris. Any of the bottom half teams could shoot up the list if their young quarterback hits and catapults their rebuild. 100%. 100%. And Carolina and Atlanta are grouped that closely because, like, if Bryce Young is good right out of the gate and they start playing really well, like, I love the coaching. I love the infrastructure. And I think they could move up the list very, very quickly because, again, they're in a division that's very, very winnable. And then, again, the path in the NFC is much, much easier. Taylor B with, I think, the slam dunk take. What if the Jags hosted said playoff game in Daytona, though? Changes everything. Number one on the list. If they host a playoff game at a racetrack, number one on the list. Bailey, Chris, this isn't close. It might be close this year with the teams, but to make it year after year, you need an elite QB. Aaron Rodgers is the rebuttal to this argument. Aaron Rodgers is an elite QB. Hasn't made it to another Super Bowl. It is not a slam dunk if you have an elite quarterback that you are just absolutely guaranteed an opportunity to go to a Super Bowl. And I'm sorry. I love Trevor Lawrence. I thought Trevor was vastly improved from his rookie season. But he wasn't perfect last year, folks. He was not a perfect quarterback. Did he make improvements? Yes. And if you're betting on more improvements in 2023, I agree. But if we're sitting here and saying there's a realistic shot he could be an elite QB by the end of the year, sure, I can get on board with that, but he's not there yet. And so to say that you need an elite QB, I think there are examples that are to the contrary of that, but at the same time, he's not there yet. And so I can't rank him to where we think he's going to be. And the argument being you need an elite QB come January, and so move the Jags up because Trevor's on a path to being an elite QB. Well, he's not there yet. So I can't put him there. I have to rank him the way I have everybody else because I as of this moment, I just don't think we can put him in that tier yet. Do I think at the end of the year we could be having that conversation? Absolutely. He played well enough in 2022 to give me that confidence that we will be having that conversation, but he's not in that tier yet. So I'm not going to treat him as such, and I'm not going to have that conversation where you need an elite QB come January, so move the Jags up. Well, we're not putting Trevor Lawrence in that tier yet. But he's much closer than Jared Goff, Chris. It is not a stretch to expect that step when we saw last year. Jared Goff can only be above average in an elite situation, which is hard to maintain. I get what you were saying, but he's still better than Goff. Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl, folks. Trevor Lawrence hasn't. So if you're going to hit me with the argument that the Jags have played in playoff games and the Lions haven't, Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl, Trevor Lawrence hasn't. And then if you want to hit me with the system and the Ram, that's fine, but he's been there. And so for me, I don't think there is a big enough difference right now going into 2023 that Trevor Lawrence, where he currently is, not where we think he's going to be, but where he currently is, that overrides the pathway that the Lions would have in the NFC and the talent that I think the Lions that I think I would take the Lions over the Jags with the rest of their rosters. So for me, that's what puts them 4. You want me to put them in front of Minnesota and move them 5? I think we can do that. I think we'll move Jacksonville up 1 spot for you guys. We'll put Jacksonville 5 and Minnesota 6. But that's it. I will not move the Jags above the Lions. I won't do it. I won't do it. Matt says, Goff is a worse quarterback, but the offense he operates fits him like a glove. All QBs are system QBs. When Ben Johnson leaves, then I worry a bit. And Ben Johnson could leave this year, so that means you are worried after this year. This list is likelihood of winning their next championship. That's how I would view it going into 2023. If at the end of the season, Trevor Lawrence develops and becomes an elite quarterback, and we talk about him in that tier, and Ben Johnson leaves the Lions, and maybe they don't win the division and they don't make the playoffs, we're going to be talking about this list very differently. Also, if Deshaun Watson continues to be bad, the Browns are going to move down from 7. But this is how I would view it going into 2023. This is the likelihood, I think, of it playing out where these teams are holding up their first Lombardi trophy. I would take for 2023 the Lions over the Jags. I would. I think we need to pump the brakes on the Jags for 2023. I know they were exciting last year, and I know they made the playoffs and they won the division and they won a playoff game. I get all that. I'm on board, but I'm just not there. Bailey, Chris, but the Jags might have a 10-year window. The Lions have 1 year is what you were saying. The Lions cannot be more likely. This is mental. Bailey, we are looking at this by saying going into 2023, if we had to rank the 12 teams that have never won a Super Bowl in the likelihood that they are going to win their first Super Bowl next, this is how I would look at it. The context changes year to year. And there is a very, very good chance, I have not conceded this point, there is a very good chance that going into 2024, we view the Jags differently than we do the Lions, and that the Jags are further up on this list. But going into 2023, if you want to talk about 10-year windows, then for you, the Jags should be higher than the Lions, the Chargers, the Bills, and the Bengals. They should be higher up because they've got a longer window. That's ridiculous. I think going into 2023, the Lions are more likely to win a championship and win the Super Bowl than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And maybe that's a hot take. And maybe that's where we'll disagree. But that is how I feel going into 2023. We have them 4-5. Worst case scenario, if I conceded this entire argument to you guys, I would move them up one spot. They would still be behind the Chargers, they would still be behind the Bills, and they would still be behind the Bengals. I just don't agree with your premise. I don't agree with your argument. I don't agree. Looking at this from into 2023, the Lions would be the team that I would pick over the Jags. I love that these were the two teams that generated the most debate. I was not sure where we were going to sidebar. I wasn't sure where the conversation was going to veer off and go off the road, but here we are. Teams 4-5 on the list. And I've already conceded, and I moved them up a spot. I moved the Vikings down to 6. Taylor B, if both teams played their best possible season, the Jags would be better because they are better at the most important position. And then the counter to this is what I would argue is the Lions would be better positioned to make a run in the postseason to win a championship. And that is what we are debating. Tuttle is making my argument for me. Jacksonville AFC path includes beating a combination in some capacity of Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Rodgers, Herbert. For Goff in the NFC, it's Hurts and then who else? Geno Smith? Derek Carr if the Saints win that division? You guys love to tell me how terrible Derek Carr is. Whoever's playing quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers? Dak Prescott, who I don't think is a top 12 quarterback in the league? The path, once they get to the playoff, absolutely matters. Absolutely matters. And so I'm sorry. I think the Lions and Jags are close enough right now to where the pathway can be the tiebreaker. And so for me, Detroit goes above Jacksonville. If Detroit doesn't pan out this year, guys, and they don't win the division, and they don't win as many games as maybe we think they will, and they don't make the playoffs, and they don't go on the run that we think they can go on, then the list will change for 2024, and we'll move the Lions down, and the argument will be, they haven't showed it to us yet. We're a little concerned. They had a wide open opportunity in 2023. They didn't get there. The Jags, 2 years of them doing it. Trevor Lawrence got better. He's in that elite quarterback tier. And then we would move the list around going into 2024. But I can't sit up here and look at this list in 2023 and with a straight face say Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence are so vastly better than the Lions that we're going to put the Jags above the Lions and that the path doesn't matter. I just can't get there. I can't. So for me, it will be the Lions. It would be the Lions 4 and the Jags 5. I don't want to talk bad about the Jags. I love the Jags. I love Doug Peterson. I love Trevor Lawrence. I love Travis Etienne. I love a lot of the pieces that they have on that team. I'm super in. But I just think the two teams are close enough to where the path that they would have to the Super Bowl in 2023 absolutely matters when viewing this. And if you want to talk long-term, the Jags right now still are going to face that path for a pretty long time. And so they have to put themselves into that elite tier for me to then view them on a similar pecking order. Taylor B says, okay, forget the top of the list. I think Tennessee should be 12. If you wanted to flip Houston and Tennessee, then the argument you would be making, and it's one that I'll hear, is that you believe in the long-term vision of Houston a little bit more than you do Tennessee. You believe in C.J. Stroud over whatever the long-term answer at quarterback is for the Titans. You believe in a lot of the other pieces. Decent offensive line, specifically on the left side. We've got a good running back in Dameon Pierce. Probably could use some skill position players. I know they ranked 20. It's a hotly contested issue. The 24th ranked wide receiver room in all of football, according to me. Defense, you've got some nice pieces. That would be the argument. Is you'd be betting on them being Bailey. So are we saying are we saying you is most likely to win one next, or who is most likely to win one this year? Well, I mean, there is a difference, but I don't think it's a vast difference, because if I think in order to say a team is likely to win one next, you'd have to look at it from the context of who's most likely to win one in the upcoming year. And you would go year to year to year to have this conversation. That's the way that I'm looking at it. Bailey, I understand the distinction you were trying to make. And I agree that there are, if we were looking at this from an overall perspective of windows, right? That there's different conversations to be had. Agreed, right? Teams have windows, and those windows change, and there's 3 to 5 year windows, and depending on where you are in that window of competing in success, would change the dynamics. I agree. But I think in order to look at who is most likely to win one next, you need to look at it on a year-to-year projection. You need to look at it year to year. So going into 2023, how would I rank these teams? There's a huge difference, Chris. Neither of these teams are more than 5% likely to win one this year. The 5-year window means everything to this. But by doing the list this way and by doing it year to year, it will play itself out. Because the context will catch up. We will have a bigger sample size on Detroit. We will have a bigger sample size on Jacksonville. We will have a bigger sample size on Carolina, Atlanta, and the list will change. The list will evolve. And so for me, this is the way that I'd like to do the list. I want to evaluate it based on how would I rank these teams in likelihood of winning a championship in 2023. That is how I'm choosing to do this list. And guess what? For 2024, if these same 12 teams are sitting here still looking for a championship, I guarantee you the list looks different in 2024. Guaranteed. I guarantee you the order's different. I guarantee you, depending on what happens, but then that's not most likely to win a Super Bowl next. I think we're arguing semantics here. I think we're arguing semantics. Because these are the 12 teams that we have to pick from. And if you asked me going into this season, who is next likely to win the next team to win a Super Bowl from this list, I would say the Cincinnati Bengals. Because I think they're the team that has got the best opportunity in 2023 to win a Super Bowl. And so because of that, this is the year where they're in a position to win a championship. And guess what? If they don't win a championship and Trevor Lawrence reaches that elite tier of quarterback, the Jags will move up. And I'm sorry, we're arguing one spot. You're arguing one spot because they're not going to touch the Bengals, Bills, and Chargers. They're going to go from 5 to 4. That's it. Taylor B says, how would the list look if you added teams like the Jets that haven't won since the 60s? I think the Jets would be probably in this Lions Jags tier. And I think you'd put the Jets 6. You'd put them behind the Lions and the Jags. Because the division, they might only be the third best team in their division. The path would matter. The history with Rodgers not making it to another Super Bowl would matter. Those things all matter. Chargers are going to be playing road playoff games against Lawrence, Lamar, Burrow, Allen, and Rodgers. That's why they're third on the list, Bailey. They're not in that top tier of teams that have playoff success. You're going to sit up here and tell me that the Chargers aren't a more talented team than the Jags and have a better chance of winning a Super Bowl? No, Bailey. This is the last time I'm going to say this. This is the last time I'm going to say this. And then hopefully we can go back to our Tennessee and Houston conversation. The reason why the path is being used as a tiebreaker is because I think the Lions and Jags are equally close in terms of how I would rate their rosters and where I think they're at. And so the tiebreaker is the pathway to a championship. The Chargers, I think, despite losing to them in the playoffs, I think are a much better team than the Jacksonville Jaguars on paper from a talent perspective. And so for me, that overrides the path. Is that I think they're just a much better team. Because guess what? The Bengals are going to have a tough path too. Are you going to move them? What are we doing here? Jamie's in the chat. Jamie, I need you to weigh in on this. Because Jamie's the first person to disagree with me if he thinks I'm wildly inaccurate. So I know he's in the chat. And I got to know where Jamie stands on this. This Detroit versus Jacksonville debacle that we have found ourselves in. And by the way, I'm moving Houston up a spot. We're moving Houston to 11. We're moving Tennessee to the bottom. I've been convinced. So I was editing scouting reports. What is the criteria? So we are doing a list of, obviously, the next team to win a Super Bowl. Who's most likely to win a Super Bowl next? And here's the way that I have the list. Okay, for Jamie, who's just joining us, for the podcast listeners, you get to hear the full list again after we've made some changes. Cincinnati 1, Buffalo 2, the Chargers 3, the Lions 4, the Jags 5, the Vikings 6, the Browns 7, the Panthers 8, Falcons 9, Cardinals 10, Texans 11, Titans 12. Jamie, the way that I am doing the list, I am looking at this from a year-to-year projection. So I'm looking at this from who is best suited in 2023 with all the context that we have to win a championship. And then the list would change in 2024. Bailey hates that this is the way I'm doing the list, and that's what's allowed us to go down this rabbit hole for at least 15 minutes now. Bailey is saying that the Jags should be above the Lions and should be higher up on this list because they've got the elite quarterback situation figured out, and because of that, they should be higher up on this list. Mainly one spot. And my argument, Jamie, is right now, the way we look at these teams, I think Detroit and Jacksonville are close enough with where both teams are currently at that the path that the Lions would have in the playoffs is the difference maker right now. But the context on that could change at the end of the season. That is the argument that I have attempted to make. Heldley says Jacksonville versus Detroit is so close, but Detroit edges because the NFC is easier. And Bailey, I want to make something very clear. I understand the argument. I understand the way that you're attacking this, right? I'm just viewing it a little bit differently. And because the Lions have a better chance in 2023, it means they're higher on the list. I mean, Heldy, that's what I'm saying. Jamie says it's too tough to predict path beyond one season, and Jacksonville has its quarterback, so that's the better long-term option. Detroit gets the nod this year because the NFC is weaker. Well, and that's kind of the path that I'm trying to take with this list is that we're going to do this again, but like year to year, this list would change. And I have always said that if the Lions don't do what we think they're going to do, #OurLions, and the Jags and Trevor Lawrence continue to develop and they win the division again and they win a playoff game and they have a better year than Detroit does, and maybe Detroit misses the playoffs, then I'll have a bigger sample size to buy in on Jacksonville and I'll make the switch. They'll be higher up on the list. I agree, Jamie. I think outside of the top 2 on this list, none of these teams are going to be touching the Super Bowl. But that's what I'm looking at. Okay, Chris, forget this year. Who is more likely to win a Super Bowl before the other team? Who is more likely to win a Super Bowl before the other team? Man, I'm sorry. I keep going back to the path, man. In the short term, even in the next 3 years, the path for the Lions is going to be easier. And I'm sorry, but like that matters, man. That matters. Not having to go through Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and potentially Rodgers and Tua and the Dolphins offense and like just all of that. Like not having to go through that is like it matters. Bailey, I just think I think you are viewing Jared Goff as a bottom third of the league starter. I'm just not there, man. Jared Goff is good enough to win and go on a run in the playoffs. He is, because he's done it. But Bailey, we can't assume that Ben Johnson's gone. We can't. Ben Johnson is currently the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. And until that changes, that's the information that we've got. Like I said, until Trevor Lawrence gets into that elite tier of quarterback, he's not in there yet. We can't add arbitrary arguments to this conversation that haven't happened yet. And so that's where I would put pause on this. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is in a tier right now that can override what I think is an easier path for the Lions. But you have to play chances. You don't bet based on certainties. You bet based on odds. Yes, and you are going to sit up there and tell me that the Lions wouldn't have better odds to make it to the Super Bowl, considering their path in the NFC compared to what Trevor Lawrence would need to do in the AFC. And I'm sorry, Trevor Lawrence is not an elite QB yet. He's not there. He's not in that tier. So he is not on the level of a Mahomes, of an Allen, of a Herbert, of a Burrow. He's not there. He's not on that tier. Goff at his best is QB what in the NFC? So we'll put Jalen 1. I think Goff is better than Geno. QB right now? Is he QB 3, QB 4? Right now, Taylor, Trevor's QB just for 2023? I think he's going to be he's QB 5. He's always going to be behind. He's not worse than Cousins. Taylor, at his best, I think he's going to be QB 4 or 5. I think he's going to be behind Mahomes. I think he's going to be behind Allen. He's going to be behind Burrow. You can make the argument that Trevor, at his best, is going to be behind. But, we don't know what we're not there yet. I am pleasantly surprised that this show has gone as long as it has, and I'm pleasantly surprised we've had the level of debate that we've had. But I am shocked that this is the debate that we're having. I did not think that having the Lions where I have them with the reasoning that I have them would cause this much backlash. I am pleasantly surprised. It's been fun though. I think you can make a case that Jared Goff is the fourth best QB in the NFC right now. I think you can make that case. And so that's fine. And I appreciate everybody who has taken part in this debate, and I appreciate you, Bailey, and I don't want you to think that we are going at it here. This has been fun. This has been fun dialogue. Both QBs at their best are QB4 in their conference. Yes, Taylor. Yeah, I think that's fair. At their best. And so I'll take the path that Jared Goff's going to have, because I think the 3 quarterbacks in front of Jared Goff are not as good as the 3 quarterbacks that would be in front of Trevor Lawrence and the teams that he would have to face. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. I have the Jags as a top 5 team on this list, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just, I am, this has been shocking to me that this is where we've had this debate. We are going to put a pin in this, though, because we could go on this all day, and we're already approaching records for how long this show is going to be in the TDN history lore. But that is going to do it for us on the podcast edition of the show. It'll probably continue over in the post show. It's a good reason for you to join us Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel, so you can be a part of these conversations and you can see what happens in the pre-show, in the post show, and everything that occurs there. But please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. We greatly appreciate that. Share the show wherever you're listening to it with a friend, family member, coworker, somebody you think would enjoy the debates and the conversations that we have here on the show. We would greatly appreciate it. That's going to do it for us here on the podcast edition of the show. Hope everybody has a great rest of their Tuesday. We will talk to you all tomorrow. There it is. Taylor hit me with the question that I was just waiting for somebody to just do. Why do I hate Trevor Lawrence? There you go. Yep, there. Thank you. Thanks, Taylor. Appreciate it. You caught me. Hate Trevor Lawrence. Can't stand the guy. Think he's a bum. Yeah, Jamie brings up such a good point. This debate is going to stand alongside the Texans wide receiver core as just the most random debates that we've had on this show. And I greatly appreciate it. Bailey, if you're still in here, I hope you are enjoying the banter and not upset, because I know I got a little loud. I don't want to say combative, but we got a little argumentative, but it was all in good fun. It's all in good spirits. I appreciate the challenge. Bailey says, "Oh, don't get me started on the Texans wide receiver core. Are Indy better or worse than Minnesota, Green Bay?" I think Indy is. I didn't say that, Jamie. I didn't say that. Are Indy better and worse than Minnesota, Green Bay? I think it's tough. I think it's tough to determine what Green Bay is. And I think it's tough to determine what Indy's going to be. I mean, they're both basically starting relative unknowns at quarterback. I mean, Jordan Love's played obviously just a little bit more, but they're both starting relative unknowns. I think I like Indy's supporting cast a lot more. I don't hate Bailey. Stop spreading lies. Stop spreading lies. I like Bailey. Who is more likely to win the division, Chris? Who is more likely to win the division? I mean, obviously, I would say the Jags. Because they won it last year, and I think the teams behind them have gotten worse. I mean, Minnesota still's got a lot of the infrastructure that they had when they won the division. I just don't think they're going to win as many games, and I think the Lions are going to be improved. So I think that's where the difference comes in. But I think it would be the Jags. Taylor, I know what you're referencing. That I've seen that TikTok. But Bailey, how about this? How about I ask you a question? Because I think if the Lions were a wild card team, I still think I would take them over the Jags as a division winner because the path's easier. Yes, Jamie. What happens first? The Jags or Lions win the Super Bowl, or somebody beats Roman Reigns? Oh, somebody beats Roman Reigns, I think. Oh, I don't really know. Sportsnut, is your wee woo the Stephon Diggs news? I mean, yeah, it always worries me when a coach, obviously Stephon Diggs, for those of you who are now, maybe they haven't seen the news, he not at mandatory minicamp, and Sean McDermott has used the quote, very concerned. Hopefully everything's okay with Stephon Diggs personally. And hopefully that very concerned is more of an indication that Sean McDermott is worried about the football situation with Stephon Diggs than he is the personal situation with Stephon Diggs. I hope that the concern level is just strictly related to football, and not related to anything personal. I think that's obviously the place I'd like to start this conversation. But if we just look at this from a football perspective, if that's what Sean McDermott is referencing, and hopefully somebody followed up and there's a little bit more context to that quote, that's a can of worms. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, where could he go? Where could he go? They're not gonna trade him based on offseason context clues. This is football related, and I sure hope so, Jamie. I sure hope so. They're not going to trade him to an AFC team. That's not going to happen. They're not going to trade Stephon Diggs to a contender in their own division. So we now need to look at NFC teams. Man, if the Panthers had any level of draft capital, I would say be all over this to replace DJ Moore. Can't wait for #OurLions to get Stephon Diggs. I mean, Bailey, that's not true. The Panthers have money. The Lions have money. The Cowboys have money enough to be able to make this. They're not trading him. Well, then what are we concerned about, Jamie? What are they concerned about him just sitting out? Like, I don't understand. If they're not trading him, then what are we very concerned about? I don't know if he has to say it. He can just say Stephon's not here right now. I'm concerned that Chris thinks Jared Goff's elite. 14th. Their quarterback room was ranked 14th on the rankings. Now you're just poking a hornet's nest. Bailey, okay? We did the rankings and we put him 14th. We had Jacksonville 10th. So I don't want to hear it. Don't start with me, Bailey. Giants with Daboll. Can we talk about Declan Rice upgrading London clubs? Bailey, you're asking for it today. You're just poking the bear. You're just like, what can I bring up that's going to make Chris angry? Upgrading London clubs. How many European trophies does Arsenal have in their locker this year compared to how many my team has? 0 would be the answer to that question. See you, Tuttle. Appreciate you being here. How does this affect Tyrese Halliburton's legacy? Oh, man. I love hanging out with you guys. This is always a blast. We've got linebackers to rank tomorrow on the show. I didn't even mention that in the close of the show. I was so flustered. Future Arsenal great Declan Rice. It is true. He is going to be a future Arsenal great. It's going to be their biggest transfer signing yet. They're going to spend like 100 million euros on him. Diggs for Garrett Wilson. No, thank you. Put the Bears high. I will be back for arguments. Eagles 29th. I'm calling it now. I haven't done any of the work on the list. So there's not even like a preliminary list that I can bring to you guys. So we will do that on tomorrow's show. But I don't even have a preliminary version of said list for you guys. But all right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to edit the show and get it up for the podcast audience. Appreciate everybody being here. Again, appreciate everybody being a part of the debate and the conversation. I wasn't sure when doing the topic and doing the list. I did the list so quickly. I was like, man, I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of debate. I wasn't sure if we were going to get 20 minutes out of the show today. But you guys delivered with some debates and some conversation. So greatly appreciate it. You made the show one of the longest ones in TDN Daily history. So was a lot of fun. So everybody have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your Tuesday, and I'll talk to everybody tomorrow morning. Bye, guys.